go ahead to the virtual. We have with us Matt Watts. Give me an intro, Matt. Matt is an animator and breeder who had an unconventional start to the industry, as did another one of our panelists. So don't forget, if you have not broken into the animation industry and you think it's too late, that's by no means the case. There's always opportunities for learning out there. And two of our panelists, all four of our panelists are really great people to talk to in that respect. So, Matt, animator, rigger, he does the hard stuff no one wants to do. Sorry, no one really likes rigging that.
It's okay.
Then we have Moroni. Moroni and I have known each other for
Like 10 years.
almost 10 years, yeah. We worked together at Blue Sky over in Connecticut. Rest in peace, Blue Sky, rest in peace. And Moroni is a fantastic story artist who has brought characters that you absolutely love to life, like a particularly squirrely squirrel. And then let me go ahead and grab our other panelists. So we have with us Eli Harris, who is an award-winning voice actor and a Jedi, which we will get into later. Legit Jedi. As many things as Moroni has, which is just about everything. So please welcome John Navarez. Cool, and if you guys want to say hi, just to make sure you're all up and running with your audio.
Hello.
Nice, Eli. Eli has a beautiful voice. I told him he could read me that kind of stories anytime. I would love it. It was like, jumped over the moon. Yes, he did jump over the moon. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and kick off our panel. Alrighty, guys, so, I'm going to ask a question and I'll give you the mic and feel free to just go off on whatever you want to talk about as an answer. So, our first question is, why the heck are we talking to these four individuals? What have you guys done in the way of character development, and what can you help bring to the table here today? So, Matt, we're going to you first.
Oh, great.
Hey, so I've worked on the Disney Tangled series, the Puzzles Tangled Adventure of Fates. That was one of my favorite projects, and so bringing characters to life is something that I love to do. And I don't know if you're aware, but most of the series that you see on TV today, a lot of them are animated with Toon Boom Harmony. And so you animate all of the characters in every scene that you work on, which is different from what it used to be like, where you kind of focus on one of the characters and get really good at drawing them. And so I think what I'll be able to share today is kind of the last pass, the polish, like how you're actually having the performance completed. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from these other guys. I got an awesome sample. You guys are in for a great panel from them. And so I'm looking forward to hearing about the rest of that stuff. So let's turn it over to Moroni.
Hey everybody. On the early stages of developing the character, storyboard on the movies, like 30 of them. And so early on in the movie, before things are totally figured out, it's guys like me and me that start figuring out who the character is, what they're doing, why they're doing it. Like an example, on Ice Age 1, when we started on that movie, we had the first pass of the script. It starts off with Sid waking up, like trying to sneak out of the cave away from a girl's slot. And I was like, guys, what is this? I won't make any kids movie. Let's see it. That was going to be funny, right? That was going to be funny. People are going to be offended. So we started developing Sid. You know, they were like, no, he's got to be edgy, but you got to like somebody. If he's like edgy, isn't that likable? I always look at like that movie School of Rock. Like if you actually knew the Jack Black character, like he was your actual friend, you would probably hate him. But in the movie, it's funny because you're insulated from all of this stupid stuff that he does. So you want to like the characters. They got to do cool stuff.
Thanks. John.
Hey everybody, that's like Brody. I'm part of the early kind of phase of when you kind of start production. So for me, I mostly use it as a location designer for the sales artist, but I have my hand in doing some early character design. I was going to hopefully share with you guys the kind of like the evolution and the early stages of how we design developments for Coco. And yeah, and I can also talk about how the characters, when designing sets, you kind of use the characters as a backup for it, kind of different set, check for scale, and also how you're creating a setting about how you need to know the personality or you know your character to kind of mesh in with your environment, so they kind of live and work together. So yeah, I think it's not that later, but I'm excited to be with you guys and you know, answer questions. So yeah. So Eli.
And I've been involved in multiple projects, not only cast, redevelopment, during development, then when we put after development, that's the so I've had to work myself on the border. As season, it came out, it was fine. Georgia Doors, and I've created a project with other places. Yeah, a part of it. And so I was looking into one captain projects for the project and having the story faster, backwards, and reaching for us. And for us to know the story right there to get the problem collection, bring the right attitude. So that's
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
So, now that we realize that we have character movement, we have character design, we have environment design, we have character voice, right, all represented within our panelists. When you receive a script or a storyboard, depending on where you are in the pipeline, how much leeway are you typically given to develop that script further? To help develop the characters, to help develop environments. How much leeway are you really given?
Well, I just take it because usually the scripts are not that good. When I first started out doing storyboards, I tried to like, oh, I only do this. And after a while, I realized, no, they hired me because they want ideas. So I just do whatever. If I think my idea is better than the script, I'll throw it out. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But you don't know unless you try. So in my particular instance, and then over time, they don't even give you scripts anymore. They say, hey, we got this situation, come up with something cool, let's see what you got. When the movie's like way far down the road and the characters are pretty much developed, then you don't have leeway because they're like, no, we can't. The movie's animated, we just need a little funny joke right here, or a little tiny character moment. You can't rewrite the scene. But in the beginning is when you want to explore it. And to develop a character, a lot of times people think, when I ask like students when I was teaching them, hey, what's a character? It's like, oh, it's a fat guy who's angry all the time. No, that's not a character. Character is what are the things that make them do what they want. Like think of Trump. And Emperor's New Groove, like, oh, he's just a big dumb guy. No, he's not a big dumb guy. He's dumb and he's big, but that's not his character. He likes making the little chicken puffs, and he's a cook. He's like really into that, or the spinach puffs, I think is where it beginning scene when he's supposed to be killing Kronk, giving him the poison, or not Kronk, Cusco. But he's worried about his spinach puffs. That's his character. And then later on in the movie, he takes over in the diner, and he starts doing everyone's order. It's like, oh, he's so funny. And that's what character is, like what is driving the person or the animal, whatever it is in the movie. What makes them do what they want to
do? I had a quote that I wanted to share with you guys about animation characters, and I think it fits into here pretty well. One of the things that, while we're animating, we want to make sure that the characters are consistent with themselves and there is some freedom. We get the storyboards, it's the idea of what's going to happen, but a lot of the time I'm listening to the voice and that's what I'm trying to animate to, try to get the feeling across that they were communicating. It's really important to get the context also, but the willing suspension of disbelief, like this is what animation is. This was by Ed Hooks. In a nutshell, the willing suspension of disbelief means the people in the audience know what they are seeing on stage or screen is a pretend reality, but they are pretending that they do not know that. They accept the given premises of the story being told in order to empathize with the actors. An example would be knowing that Superman cannot in reality fly, and then pretending that you don't know that. The storyteller tells the audience that in this story a man can fly. The audience suspends its disbelief and goes along with that premise. Okay, one more paragraph. There is an implied contract between actors and audience, and the terms of that contract are fragile. It is not so easy for an audience member to suspend their disbelief for 2 hours. The storyteller has to help by telling the story consistently within the pretend parameters established at the beginning. If Indiana Jones sprouts wings and starts flying midway through the movie, the audience will feel betrayed, cheated. Nobody said anything about Indiana flying when the movie started, and nobody said anything about him having secret wings. So the consistency and the authenticity and the believability of characters is what we have to stick to make sure that it comes across as believable. We need people to believe that these are real characters having real feelings.
Thanks, Matt. Actually, I think that leads beautifully to Eli. So Eli, you played a lot of different characters for both video games, for anime. I know that, like you said, you were in Star Wars and you were a Jedi. I know that was a little bit of a dream come true for you. So tell us a little bit about how you, as an actor, prep for that role. If once your voice is in there, it's up to Matt to animate it. Like, what are you doing to help develop that character from a VO perspective?
So first of all, for me, I'm an actor first and foremost, so I'm a person that really gets into the meat of the character. And, I spoke loosely in the beginning in regards to having a backstory, something that Matt just touched on, is that the story is important. And so for me, understanding the demeanor of the character is what helps me to get into the mindset of the training and acting. For instance, for General Barlow, understanding that he is sort of a wild spirit, but also disciplined. And so, in the scenes with him when I'm confronting the clone, I get angry because this particular person was once human and killed off my family. So I had to understand that with this particular character, his demeanor is a lot more even-tempered. So not everybody's going to have the Samuel L. Jackson anger where you're screaming all over the place. With him, it's a lot more measured. So, you killed my family, all because you were so afraid to do it. As opposed to, you killed my family. Because it's over the top. So understanding the demeanor of that character is what helps me prepare for it. And then I'm able to take that and who I am as an individual and apply it so that it becomes believable.
Nice. I was actually just yesterday, as we were prepping everything for the event today, I was listening to an interview with an actor, and he said that, you get to a certain point as an actor where you are not you anymore. You are watching yourself perform. And athletes call it getting in the zone, right? Where they're like just doing their thing, they're doing what they're trained to do, and they're doing their absolute best at it, and it's kind of almost a reaction at that point. It's secondary, it's involuntary in the way that they're doing things because they've trained so much for this. So, John, knowing that actors can get into the zone, knowing that sports guys, I know I'm really into sports, that's why I call them sports guys, sports people can get into the zone. What does the artistic zone look like for you? And specifically when you were working on Coco, like with those, kind of getting into the getting to the realm of the dead?
Yeah, I think artistically, getting to the zone, you kind of want to, as a designer, you want to kind of know the story. So, you will given the script, comments, maybe the director's notes, whatever, and then you just kind of think about your role, and you just kind of do reference research. You get to know the world as much as you can. You can know the characters as much as you can. If it's a living set, you try and visit it. Obviously, you can't because you don't have that luxury. So you go on Google, you go on Yahoo, do a lot of pictures, Google Maps. You just try and get research as much as you can. Any inspiration to even for movies, just try and build a tableau, or you just try and get into the mindset of what you're designing for the set. Try and get as much information from that set. If it's characters, you just want to, again, try and figure out, who these people are. Either personality-wise, even their physical traits. And you can get that from other characters, or just generic characters, just to kind of, visually kind of see what you can kind of play with, what you can bring.
So John, when you get a script, right, you're kind of tied into the script, but you're also tied into whatever direction the director is going to give you. How do you kind of balance that with your own needs or wants for the character and where you think the character should be going?
Yeah, I think you have to. It's funny. Moroni said like a lot of scripts are bad. It's like, well, sometimes they're not as strong, or they kind of have an essence of what they want. So it's you have to contribute, and so it's basically, for me, it's almost like the time given. Like if you have a lot of time to give, then if you can have a lot of time to kind of add more variations and options, and then sometimes you can play with different options. If you don't, then it's like what I've learned is like, okay, I'm going to give you like 3 or 4. That way I don't burn my wheels and lose sleep. So I might get something exactly what the director wants, and then I might I'll do something that I want, and then I'll do something that's a little more like kind of like the director wants, but a little more different spin, and then something a lot more liberal, where I'll just kind of out of the box. So that way, those 4 options, they're kind of covering all ground as far as stylistically where it might land. So I kind of do that. I made the mistake of, like, when I was on Tinkerbell, that was my first visual development project. I was so excited, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to impress these folks. I'm so excited. I want to do it. So the first night, I was up till 4 a.m. I did 70 designs. The next day, I was up till 2 a.m. I did 40 designs. On the third day, I was so tired, I was up till 11 o'clock, and I did 8 designs. So on the 4th day, my producer came in and said, hey, we need to have a talk. I'm like, okay, wonder what's about. So I go into the meeting room. There's my producer who wanted to talk to me, my art director, and a production secretary. And the first thing she said was, well, John, we're a little concerned. I'm like, what happened? And I'm like, well, the last batch of work, it's not exactly what the amount of work you did on the first day. And I was a little stunned. I'm like, huh? And the reason was she was kind of basing my work based on the quantity, not so much the quality. So she expected me to kind of work at that amount every day. And here I was trying to impress her, not realizing, like, I set a high standard, or I set a high bar first. And after that day, I realized I didn't need to do so many drawings. I didn't need to do all that. I could have gone away with 5, and the 5 would have led the discussion, like, okay, from that 5, we like this, we like that. So I learned that was a way of working smart, maybe not working hard. We're always working hard, but I learned there's a way where you can kind of, you can get what you need with just a few pieces. So within those few pieces, something kind of what the director wants, something maybe what you want, and then something in between. And that is like a smart way to work. And you kind of, based on what's given and stuff, that you kind of find what that is. So that's just generally speaking.
As voice actors, we do that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. We oftentimes we will do exactly what the director asks us to do, and then we will do a couple of different interpretations for options. Because a lot of times, some directors will have something specific in mind that they want to hear, but then when they hear your interpretation of it, it may add a little more flavor, or add a little more character that they didn't see. So yeah, I definitely agree with what he said, because I've shot myself in the foot like that before too by overdoing it, and now it's like the expectation is kind of like, where's those 20 other voices, you know?
Mm.
So yeah, I totally get that, John.
Yeah, it was a life lesson that helped me. Now I can sleep better. I can sleep.
I like that story, John. It makes me think of it's time early, the early years of Blue Sky. The way our desks were set up, we were in kind of like this bullpen area. We didn't really have offices, but all these desks were in a square big room, and there were cubicles that were open to each other. In the middle was where that's when we were still drawing on paper. We pinned it up on a storyboard, and the director would come in and look at it. And we had this one, they're called the production manager. Anyways, this person that was over the story artist, like managing her time. And she would come in and look at us and I was like, everything going? I'm like, that's good. What are you working on? Oh, I don't know, that scene I got last week. And she'd peek over the edge to see what we were doing. And one time, you could tell she was getting frustrated because we weren't actually drawing anything. And she's like, what are you guys gonna work? And we're like, listen, some days we just sit here and watch YouTube, okay? And other days, like the day before the pitch, we'll probably start working. And we'll draw something. That's kind of the way that at least it is for me. I'm a super procrastinator and I need pressure or I'm not going to do anything.
Can I just add to that? When working with Bro and I worked in the story department and I was that person asking him how things were going. And I would literally go and be like, hey Brian, when do you think you're going to be done with that? You're pitching that in 3 days. Like, I'll start it tomorrow. Start tomorrow. Okay, all right, trust the process, Jordan. He's been here, he knows what he's doing. And then the next day I'd literally be like, hey Brona, how's it going? Don't forget you're pitching tomorrow. And he'd be like, yeah, I just get back from lunch. I'm gonna start it tomorrow morning before the pitch. And I'd be like, this guy, sure enough, would have it ready. And it would be ready for the pitch. So sometimes just even as a producer, you just have to trust your artists and be like, all right, when will you be able to get it done? Because you're right, sometimes you do just need time to sit around and watch YouTube because you got a creative brain, it's got a lot of power that needs to flow through it, But sorry, I'm gonna give the mic to Matt because Matt seemed like he really wanted to respond.
No, I'm good. I got other stuff.
All right, cool. Matt's just writing furiously. All right, so let's see. Oh, thinking about the characters or character environments. So I know, John, that we talked previously about how, for example, you're sitting in your office right now, right? Everyone can see into John's personal life at the moment. If John was not John, that office would look very different. If you were sitting where John is, you would have maybe posters up. Maybe you'd have a pink chair. I have a pink chair. So you would not have the same setup that John has. So there's a lot of thought that you need to put in when you're thinking about character development, not just your character itself, the environment in which your character resides. So with that in mind, when thinking about characters that you guys, or character environments that you've worked on in the past, what has been the most successful, and this also works for animation as well, because as you know, characters need to move. The way I walk down the street is different than the way you walk down the street. So you kind of get the gist of this question. There's differences to every element of a character that comes out, whether it's voice, it's animation, it's environment, it's design, it's backstory. What has been the most successful character that you've worked on, and why do you think it was so successful?
All right, I'm prepared for this one. Okay, Rapunzel. I really enjoyed animating Rapunzel on the Tangled series. I think I identified with her a lot. I liked her upbeat personality, and I thought that the writing was really fantastic. I enjoyed the stories, and I spent the most time animating her in all the scenes. Her hair was a challenge when she would pull it out and act like a superhero with it, but I think that being able to relate to the characters is really important. And I really love what these guys are going to share about what they have found in our prep notes. So I think I just want to pass it along and let them share it because they got some good stuff.
Probably the funnest character I've worked on was Scrap, the little squirrel dude from Ice Age. Now, I didn't come up with it, just to clarify that. That was designed by Pete DeSeb, and then Bill Frey, another story artist, is a genius that came up with who the character is. Like that, the opening of Ice Age 1, where he's got the little nut and breaks things apart, and then the glaciers crush him, and then he gets stepped on. Bill Frey just did that one day. And then Scrap wasn't even in the Ice Age movie. It wasn't in the script. It was just a little saber-tooth squirrel at the bottom of some page of random characters that Pete DeSeb had drawn. And Bill Frey looked at that and go, oh, that's funny. And he just draws what became the opening of Ice Age 1. And then not long after that, I was hired there. I moved from LA to back east and started working on Blue Sky. And that was one of the first things they showed me. Like, oh, look, we got this little funny thing to open our movie with. And so I started working on Sid, and I kept thinking about the squirrel dude. I was like, guys, you gotta put this guy in the rest of the movie. He's funny. I'm like, no, he's just a one-note guy. He's got a nut. He puts it in the ground. He gets squished. He goes, didn't you see he got stomped on? He's done. I'm like, well. and so I said, no, I think it's great. So I came up with, we were still drawing on paper then, so I drew probably a ream of story paper drawing jokes. There must have been about 100 different jokes with the squirrel and pitched them. And they're like, all right, well, maybe. All right, there's some funny stuff in there. And we wound up putting it in, well, not we, I didn't do it, I wasn't producing the movie, but they liked the ideas enough, they put it in the movie. Anytime the movie started to get boring,
and you're like, okay, we're on this traveling movie. This is starting to suck a little bit. Let's cut to the squirrel. And now weird because it kind of became the mascot of Blue Sky. Well, not kind of, it did. It became Blue Sky's mascot. And I don't think that Ice Age 1 would have been as successful without Scrat in it. And it probably wouldn't have made 5 more Ice Ages after that. And then
Sid, I did had a lot of influence on Sid in the first Ice Age movie. And that carried over to all 5 of the other movies. It's hard work developing as a character, and it's not just like drawing the physical attributes. It's like, how's this guy going to act in any given situation? So you got to think of different situations. How's he going to act in that situation? For example, when he sees the rhinos and he's like wiping the poop on the dandelion, and he's like, "You guys have really tiny brains." No, it's a fact. He's just kind of insulting him because he doesn't think that they can understand what he has to say. And it turns out they can. And then when you have a funny character, you want to bring him back in the movie. So like later on, when Sid's trying to get the girls in the hot tub and he steals the baby and he goes back, Manny takes the baby away from him and then he goes back in the hot tub and he's like, all right, where were we? And it's the rhinos, like we brought those guys back. So they chase him off. You got to think of those nuances. Like think of 100 different situations that your character could be. And it's not actually in the story. And that helps you develop it. Another thing you need to do is read books, like read the classics. And go live some life. Don't just watch animated movies, because then you're not going to come up with good stuff, because all you think of is what's already been done. And it's okay to do what's been done, but you got to have a nice spin on that. What's your take on it?
John, Eli, anything to add?
Yeah.
Yeah, Eli, go for it, please.
Okay. For me, there's 3 projects really that comes to mind for me. The first one obviously is Star Wars. And the reason why that I really like voicing General Varlo for that is just being able to show the dynamic of who he is as a person. I think one thing a lot of people don't understand when it comes to voiceover is the amount of work it takes to be able to deliver correctly. Surely we all know people who overact or underact. So Varlo was one of those characters where he's a free-spirited individual, but he's also disciplined. So being able to vocally deliver that, for me was an achievement, because it's just so easy to go over the top when you get angry. And keeping in the mindset that he is a very measured character, though being a free spirit, it allowed me to be able to perform angry in a sense to where it's more of a calming anger. That's something I'm not typically, that I typically get to voice that often. Most of the time I do get to be very boisterous and very animated.
The second one, I don't know, Jordan, am I allowed to say the Tuttle Twins character that I voiced? Because that's right there for me as sort of a dream role. Am I allowed to say that? Because it hasn't aired yet.
I know, it hasn't aired yet. So Eli is in an unaired episode of Tuttle Twins, which I'm the producer for. And I'll give you an information. We can say who we play. Eli plays Frederick Douglass in an episode that we have coming up. And so Frederick Douglass, a historical character, if you don't know about him, read about him. He's a pretty amazing guy.
Yes, to be able to voice someone as influential to our people and to us as a country as a whole is pretty significant. And it's funny because I read his book a long time ago, and talking to Maroney. I'm not pronouncing your name right.
Tomato.
Like tomato. He was schooling me on some things about Frederick Douglass that I forgot. But just being able to voice someone that is so historically respected means a whole lot for me, my people, and just in general. And then the third one is an anime titled Broken Beat. And the reason why that one is so significant for me is because that's the first project that my son got to perform in with me. I have a 10-year-old son, and that's also a voice actor. My 12-year-old as well, but he's just getting into it. My 10-year-old, he had the chance to play my son in this. And so one may think it's easy because he's your son, so it's easy for you to perform with him. It is very difficult to voice with your child because I interact with him every day, so I know how he is. Once we get into the booth, it's a totally different element. And to be able to, one, see your child be a part of what you do, to help carry on that legacy that I set forth. And then just to be able to share the screen with him, it's one of those proud dad moments that I will never forget. And that means a whole lot to me as a father, not just so much as a performer, but just as a father. So those are the three that means a lot to me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. John?
It's funny, I'm not a character designer, so I don't do a lot of character design. The only character design I really did was for Coco, the early exploration. So I'm going to say that. And that was a wonderful joy to work on for many reasons. I was, working next to great character designers like Daniel Arriaga, Zoruhi Galstain, Jason Merck, Nat McLaughlin. So those guys are character designers and biz dev designers. So I was learning about character designs and so forth, and just exploring personalities. And for me, that movie has a special place in my heart because I was doing a movie about Mexicans. I'm Mexican American. I'm half Mexican American, so I kind of it was very important to work on a movie about representation, and it was awesome. It was beautiful. The story we were working on was much different than what came out. So I saw the movie fresh, just like everybody else, and I cried, and it was awesome. So so it was just a great experience.
Yeah, I don't think I've cried more at a movie than I did with Coco. Anybody else? Am I the only one? So we do have some stuff to show that you guys did send ahead of time. I'll ask another question while we get some of that correct. What makes your audience connect with a character, and what do you kind of do to go out of your way to make sure that audience can get that connection? Whether it's through movement, through voice, through environment, or character design or story. It's like, what do you do?
It's sacrifice. The character has to make a sacrifice to get you emotionally involved. And it's not like, oh, they died for you kind of sacrifice. Oh, that probably wouldn't really get you involved when you think of Iron Giant. It's what the characters do. So at the beginning of this talk a lot about Ice Age, because that was super well known. Sid, when you first meet him, he's just kind of this bumbling idiot. He's kind of funny. He says funny stuff. He does a couple funny things, and he's trying to bum a ride off this family. But where the heart of what Sid comes into with his heart and his sacrifice is they find the baby. And then he's like, all right, I'm not done with this thing. And Sid's like, you can't leave him here. And like Sid picks him up, and he's the driving force that makes the movie happen. We're taking his baby with us. I'm going to carry it. We're going to give it back to the humans. And Manny kind of reluctantly goes along because he's got some backstory. And the tiger shows up. And Sid is really the guy that brought everyone together. He makes a sacrifice. And that's why the audience emotionally connects with him. Scrap, he's just a funny guy. He's not making sacrifices. He just wants it done. He's just so tenacious. And so like, I just got to put this nut in the ground and something happens to him every time. So that's kind of a different character. He's not a character that's going to carry a full movie. We did try to develop a feature-length Scrap movie, but it just never took off because he's not a feature character. Same thing with like Kronk. Like he's funny in the movie, but you try to make a movie about it, it's like, he's a better supporting character, so you have to know your character's limitations. And the way to get people to connect with your characters, they can connect on an emotional level. Like that's what works. You have to have some of the same emotions. Like when I look at Mr. Incredible, from The Incredibles, like I'm a dad, I got a bunch of kids, and I see his struggles, like, he wants to be super, he wants to do the super cool stuff that he used to do, and now he's this sad dude working in a tiny office selling insurance. And it's like, oh, but he's doing it for his kids, he's trying to take care of the family, and then he does get the chance to be awesome. And so I super connected with that. It's like, yeah, as a dad, you gotta do stuff that you don't like, but it's for the kids, it's for the children. It really is.
Thanks. It's really fun getting to bring characters to life, and the thing that I see most often is, like, my manager will say, Matt, I'm looking at the scene and it looks weird. There's something wrong with it. I can't put my finger on it. And almost always, the thing is, like, people who are animating need to be good artists. You need to draw a lot, and there's no replacement for that. You have to put in the hours and the time and the devotion to the craft. You need to know, like, how shoulders work, and if the shoulder goes up, the rest of the body moves a little bit, and on the computer, yeah, you can just move the shoulder, but that looks really weird. Everything else needs to move with it. So I think trying to avoid anything that will break that suspension of belief, the disbelief stuff. Like, something I'm kind of surprised about with the Mandalorian series, I really enjoy it. They still have the really janky puppets that the lip sync doesn't really match, but that's all right. Like, there's something nice about those handcrafted puppets, and apparently the audience likes it, And so I think that that's something kind of cool. So you have to, like, choose what style you're going for, and then stick with that style in your piece that you're doing. For example, I was teaching a studio that does a lot of, like, Japanese animation, and I was showing them how to make rigs. And we got to the part where we made mouths. I said, okay, we're gonna make 12 mouths. And they said, no, we only need 3. And I said, well, let me just show you this way and you can use it or not. But they were like, all we need is an open mouth and a closed mouth. And that works for them. And the audience has agreed, we're okay with that. And so it just kind of depends on what kind of project you're working on, what the needs of the character will be for you to believe in them.
Anything to add, John, Eli?
John, go for it.
Okay. Well, for sets, it's like, I think the question was like, get emotionally engaged. That's part of it. I mean, a lot of it is when we do a set design, it's like we're informing. So when we come in, it's like, what's the information in the room that tells you what's happening? It could be a work location. It could be a bedroom, a house, a place of safety, a place of joy where someone goes as like a sanctuary. So you want to inform what that is. So, and then also what brings the more, like, say, the emotional part could be like the items in there that have, like, that are important to the character coming in. Like, Maroni, you mentioned Mr. Incredible. There's that part in the movie where Mr. Incredible, he's got like his little man cave. He's got his little safety room that, the whole house is a family house, but there's this one room. It's like I think it's like a den or some kind of, it looks like a closet that he converted into like his own kind of tribute room to himself. So he goes in there and you see like pictures of, when he was fighting criminals. There's a bent gun. There's his old uniform and so forth in a glass case. All these things were just reminders of his heyday when he was at his highest. And for them, you see the contrast from him now, and for him when he goes in, you see all that, and that's all displayed. So when you come in, you're seeing the room through his eyes because you see his reaction. You know, just there still, just kind of looking, and it's like a flashback of his good old days. And so, as a set designer, you know, the set designer would have not only it's the physical space, but it's also the items in it that will bring the connection to the character and kind of will inform the story. And then with that, the audience can make the connection of why those things are important and why he's feeling why he is.
I know the last time we talked, John, you were mentioning in Monsters University when you helped develop the environment for, what's his name, Squeaky. Yeah, his mother's house. So again, I'm going to ask you again. Did you go door to door to old ladies' houses, knocking on their doors, asking them to see their living rooms? How did you come up with that environment?
No, if I had knocked on doors, I don't know how well that would have came out. But the direction was it was supposed to be Squishy's mom's house, and they were going to use it as a fraternity. It was a Kappa house, and the goal was, or the direction was, this should be an old lady's house. In other words, it's like it hasn't aged. You know, this is something that she's been living in for like the 20 or 30 years. Squishy was born there and was raised there, and it should breathe old lady. So we were given the direction like, well, it should be like that show All in the Family, you know, the bunker house. Because if you go in, if you guys remember the Archie Bunker, or if you've seen it, it's a movie from the 70s, and I think it's a suburb set in Queens, New York, and the movie, the interior, it felt like it hasn't aged like in 20 or 30 years. So you see a lot of old things that they lived with. And so for me, I was looking at doilies, I was looking at armoires, I was looking at a lot of pewter stuff, really stuff your mom and grandma probably had in their house. So we were kind of populating all that and then giving it a monster touch. So things probably had tentacles, fangs, eyes, you know, the faint, you know, glimpse of a face and so forth. And then we just chunkified it, you know. Part of Monsters design, the Monsters University or Monsters Incorporated design is everything was a little bit chunky. So that was like an extra pass over the information of what these things were. So yeah, we just looked at that, and then I did a lot of Google reference on old houses, old lady houses. Old lady houses. That was my prompt.
Your history after that, right? Just like creeping on old lady houses. Awesome. So let's talk about some of the materials that you guys brought to share. Who would anybody? Eli? Yes, Eli.
Well, no, I just wanted to speak on that part real quick.
Oh yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah.
You want to speak about old lady houses? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, on the last question. Yeah. No, I was just going to say, you know, and as far as the voice goes with that, understanding the situation that we're in with these characters and the dynamic of the relationship with the characters will determine how I approach the delivery of these characters. So there's a project that I did recently where I'm the father to this kid who was very ambitious. My son's actually in this one, where he's very ambitious, energetic, but he wants to skip the basics and do all the advanced stuff. And so understanding how the father is in this, you know, you have different fathers that the way they come across may be a little bit more animated. So there's a particular line in the script where my son is sad because I'm telling him basically, you're not going to be able to do this quite yet. Now, I could have came across as, you know, there are a lot of people that can't jump high and are still good at basketball. Now, looking at the relationship of how he is with his son and the way that this father's demeanor is, he's a lot more caring. So understanding that this father is a lot more sensitive to this particular child because he takes things more sensitive, my delivery is going to be more like, there are a lot of people that can't jump high and are still good at basketball. Your brother, he's good at basketball, but he can't jump like the man on TV. You two are just kids. Being able to understand the relationship between these two and the personality really helps determine, okay, how am I going to deliver this? Am I going to deliver this in a more stern way to get the point across to him and potentially hurt his feelings and make him cry? Or am I going to deliver this in a way to where I'm going to get the point across and be honest with him, but also encourage him and fill him with confidence?
Yeah, I think that's an absolutely excellent point, because I think a lot of people, when they develop their characters, they're just thinking about that character. They're not thinking about how that character relates to other people, whether it's in their family, friends, just strangers on the street, because I think that's really important to know their relationship. I mean, they could be a happy-go-lucky person when they're around their friends, but when they're around their family, they're absolutely miserable and they're terrible and mean. And so determining what those traits are and knowing your character, yeah, I think that's a really, really excellent point you make. Do you guys want to share stuff? Like visual things? Yes? Matt like shivered right up, so Josh is going to pull up whatever you need.
Awesome, cool. And okay, great. And I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the visuals from some of the other guys, like John and character environments and stuff. Okay, so I love this kind of stuff. So this is called a draw over. On Instagram, you could search for the hashtag draw over. Two of the ones that we're going to see a bunch from are Crayola, CRAZEROLA, and then Animated Buzz. Anyways, as I'm working in the computer doing this two-dimensional stuff, you can move the puppet around, and a lot of the time you can tell that a computer made that. Like, you want to communicate, though, that it's not a computer doing this stuff. And usually for me, the thing that helps the most to make it not look like it was made by a computer is to do a draw over. So does that character look the way that you would actually draw it if you were illustrating it or drawing a gesture or something? And that's a lot of the time what can add a lot more life. And so, like, I was just enjoying these drawovers that this guy did, showing what to do. Like, as an animator, there's a lot of different disciplines that will help you to be a better animator. Here you go. Drawing, character design, anatomy, composition, perspective, physics, acting, continually learning, and willing to change. So I think those are all big things that will help you to animate better. But there are ingredients that help designs to read better, like the rule of thirds and the golden ratio and all that fun stuff. And then keeping white space and strong shapes, confident lines. Those are key things. So I made this handout. I teach at UVU with rigging and sometimes animation. And a lot of the time what I'll see is somebody will rotate the torso of the character, like those ones up here, and that looks very computery. That does not look like the way that somebody would draw it. Go watch any of the older traditionally animated Disney movies like Bambi, and they're moving the torso all over the place and the face. It doesn't look like somebody just rotated something. And so these quick little sketches, you know, like in art school when you have to do the 30-second gestures and you're like, why am I doing this? It looks like trash. It's not anything that I would show to anybody. Those are your exercises. You're trying to get life into it. You're trying to get the story across. That's what you do. And so these quick little sketches, like this is what I did in Toon Boom. I had those two poses and I said, okay, now it's time for me to add some life to this. These little sketches, they took me like a minute, maybe two at the most. And you can see how sloppy they are. I didn't draw all the details. I was just trying to get the story across better. And then I was able to come down here in the bottom. I added gravity to the hair. That's a very important thing. If somebody has long hair and they look up, their hair shouldn't be sticking through their chest now, you know, like, please make sure that you're following the laws of gravity. And then also, like, the way that the clothing curves to show perspective on limbs, that's also very important. This is something I'm always talking about. Like, when you're on a computer and you rotate something, it's rotating like parallel to like the audience. So watch me, I would not pick up an object this way. Like, there needs to be perspective happening. There's foreshortening, there's curvature of the clothing. So that's what I wanted to share.
John, you sent us some material as well to share. We can pull that up now too.
Good. Okay, cool. I'm going to share a little bit of what we kind of were thinking about when we were designing or early designing skeletons for Coco. And the director pretty much kind of gave us some directives when designing skeletons. He said, this is going to be a movie. It's not going to be a scary movie. It's going to be a loving movie about families and about someone going on a journey and just, trying to reconnect. So it can't be scary. And then we have to represent all ages and both sexes. So young and old, male, female. We have to figure out how they're going to emote, how they're going to feel, how they're going to be expressive. We also explore facial hair and the clothes. Are they wearing the clothes that they died in? Are we going to possibly look at, people from way back in centuries? These are things we're just kind of questioning. And then it had to be original. So on the next slide, that was going to be the hard one. That was the challenging one, how to be original, because there was so many other great movies before ours that had skeletons in it, and the designs were awesome. The Corpse Bride, Night Before Christmas, The Book of Life, and then back on, there was that really classical animated short, The Skeleton Dance. So what was great is we could use these as reference and inspiration, but then we had to divert and do something totally fresh and new. So with that, we just start with anything else. We just kind of look at reference. So see on the next slide. So basically, the team went to Mexico. They took, when I say the team, there was a group of maybe, I think 5 folks who went. The art team didn't go, but some other folks went, story folks. And they took lots of pictures, thousands of pictures. And they took a picture of a lot of the people who lived in Oaxaca, which was going to be the state in Mexico that we were kind of use as an inspirational, state to kind of use as where this could be. So let's see. So yeah, we just did a lot of photos and we created tableaus. See on the next slide.
So reference of the people that are actually going to be.
Yeah. So we just kind of, it's just part of reference. You want to definitely, see who you're designing. So what we did was we kind of made notes. So we looked at Miguel Covarrubias, who was a really great illustrator in Mexico. So we liked the way he kind of simplified things and how things were just caricatured to the most simplest forms. Simple dots for lines, maybe an exaggerated mustache, the shape of the head, and so forth. So we kind of looked at that. And then we also looked at other inspiration. There were some caricaturists from Mexico that we looked at. I think it's called Luis Carreño. Yeah, there it is. So we looked at a lot of his work, and he's just a great caricaturist. So we kind of looked at them, and him, he would exaggerate certain features, but it still had the resemblance of who you're portraying. After that, we did let's see, yeah, we created notes, and then basically this is what I created. It's okay, if we're gonna draw and be really authentic to people who lived in Latin America, Mexico, Central America, it's more observing and looking at their features. So we looked at the eyes, and I noticed there was these almond eyes. So almond eyes, and at times how the nose could be, the bridge of the nose could be flattened, or it could be a soft bend. The lips usually had a high lip, and so forth, high cheekbones. So this is kind of what I would look at as far as trying to get what features are kind of present and dominating, and obviously they can change, but these are just first stabs is trying to figure out what this could be, because I want to get it right. Let's see. So the next one would be yeah, and we also looked at Mesoamerican statues and artifacts. So we looked at Olmecs, we looked at early Incan and Aztec art, just for inspiration. So with that, see, the next one is.
While you're showing us these,
Yeah.
how long were you in this kind of phase of research and without even drawing yet? How long were you doing this?
I think the total length, I think I was on for like maybe 8 or 9 months, but the character designers, they stayed longer, of course, almost toward the end of the movie. But I remember we were just I remember early on, we were kind of like, okay, those are the directions. And we just kind of like, okay, be in a room looking at each other like, okay, what do we do? What do we do? And we just drew. And so I remember the first few months was just few weeks, few months, just drawing, scribbling, just trying to experiment with basic shapes. And that's all it is, just pencil and paper, scribbling. And then I was going to eventually show, we actually played with clay. And that was a poor man's Z model, a poor man's Maya approach toward doing this. So we can kind of see this in space and turn it around and see things in different views. For what you're looking at now is later on, when the story was more established, we were looking more at like, okay, classical, really famous Mexican singers who we can kind of use as inspirational archetypes for the design. So we looked at Pedro Infante, Jorge Negrete, Javier Solis, and others. So in the next one, yeah, and eventually we kind of landed on Vicente Fernandez and Pedro Infante. And you can see that Vicente Fernandez, you can see a little bit of the spirit of what he would do for Hector in the movie. Let's see, so in the next one, so yeah, and again, this is just part of the first weeks of just stab. So when we were doing humans, we were just kind of like, caricaturing the figures, and we were just really quick, just drawing these. And, very messy and dirty, but I'm just playing with shapes and explorations. I like to do like profile studies just to play with the features, flat nose, high nose meeting eyebrow, and so forth. And then we also did different characters. At one point, the main character had a grandma who later on became the inspiration for Coco. So we were kind of using hers. Let's see. Yeah, there's just one stab on what that could be. Let's see, the next one. Yeah, more explorations. Notice her pose, how it's crouching over, which later on would feed to when we're doing the skeleton. And again, this is my take on Miguel Covarrubias, very caricatured, shape-driven.
John, you have so much good content. You should write a book or something.
Oh, thanks. I don't know if Pixar will let me, but yeah, that'd be nice. And then, there was going to be musicians, so we, definitely had them holding guitars and trumpets and so forth. And we just experimented, caricaturing things. And so, yeah, and just painted them for color. So I think for this one, maybe, let's see, maybe you can, on the next one, go like maybe 2 or 3 down, and we can just kind of pass through these really quick. You can do human exploration, 23. Yeah, I'm sorry, that was another one. Maybe it's the next one where we get to skeletons. There it is. So yeah, when we're doing skeletons, yeah, so then we took stabs at skeletons. What we realized early on was, skeletons are hard. So we had to like kind of simplify the shape of the cranium and then how it meets the jaws and so forth, because there's, there's like cavities and holes and so forth. So we had to like figure out how do we kind of simplify all that. And then as well, we realized the jaw part, we couldn't make it too long because it started looking like a monkey. And so we had to like figure out proportion wise, how far can we go until it doesn't look like a human, it looks more like a monkey. So those are things we kind of found out early on. So let's see, the next one, you could probably go to human, probably the next one. I'm sorry.
That's a real skull.
Yeah, that's a real skull, yeah. Skull, yeah. So we also looked at marionettes. In Mexico, they're called calacas. So we kind of use those as kind of reference as well. And then you could probably go into maybe 27. Yeah. So yeah, this is just a typical example. We just on a piece of paper, this is like a letter size. I would just experiment and just kind of play with things, really rough and loose. Just keep it fluid. And then you could probably go to Clay Explorer. Yeah, that'd be good. So this is our poor man's Maya. So they just brought in clay for us. I mean, this is probably 5-6 inches tall, and we just played with it. And this is just really rude and crude, but it was a nice way of just figuring out how the form looks from different views and how if when light hits it, where we're going to see and shadows and so forth. And then the next one, the next clay explorer, I did an old lady, and then you can see on the left that was the sculpt. On the right, I just used her head. I turned it. I did a photograph, and then I just kind of on Photoshop painted what her body would be. It's just a quick and dirty version of just exploring it. And then the next one, yeah, you could probably go to 30E. Yeah, again, we were just looking at different characters, different ages and so forth. And then from here, you could probably go to, let's see, 35 or 36. Yeah, we're just exploring. Now we're kind of, adding more personality and so forth. Let's see, the next one you could probably do maybe 40 or 41. Yeah, and now we're kind of like, now I put them in tableaus. These are all drawn individually, but I put them together on a piece of paper just to play with shapes. Some have elongated craniums, some are squished, some have pronounced jawlines. Sometimes the brows are pronounced, facial hair, no facial hair, all this stuff. So here we're just experimenting and just kind of seeing what can we play with. And then we can do number 44 or 45. And then what's nice is I put them on lineups, and then we can kind of see them together with body proportions and so forth.
I love that guy with the giant chest. So good.
Yeah, we're just kind of, we just blow things up and the great thing about animation is it's caricature. You can just totally go to 11 on forms and proportions. And I think the last one you could probably do would be like 46 or 47. Yeah, we would do a lineup, and then we were exploring like, well, what if they came back from like they were Aztecs and so forth. So you could see the conquistadors, you see the Aztec rulers, you saw from colonial times, and so forth. And then the last one is kind of just more for expression. Yeah. So it was just a great exploration. It was fun, and you can see these are rough and dirty. So these weren't really polished. I mean, this was just thinking on paper and just kind of playing. This is what I call playing with a pencil. You're just, there's no right or wrong. You're just, getting messy and dirty, just figuring it out. And that's it.
Thank you, John, for sharing all of those with us. It's awesome. And John, I think you just said something really important. You said there is no right or wrong. And that's kind of the essence of it, is just play with it, right? Just keep going. I mean, how many of you guys, if you were asked today by someone to design a skeleton, would do that for 8 months, 9 months? Like, realize that if you want the character that you're creating to be real, to really live in someone's eyes, it has to be developed. And in order to develop, it needs to take time. So before we get into Q&As, I'm going to ask each of the panelists, maybe if I should ask you the question that I have just for you, or if I should just ask you the same one. How about this? What 2-sentence, keep it short because we're pretty short on time, 2-sentence advice that you would give to someone who wants to become a character artist, a character animator, a voice actor, a storyboard artist, someone in your field of your position?
You need to read a lot of books and go live some life. Don't sit in front of a computer screen and draw an animation junk or watching it all the time. Get out and be a human.
I would say take your craft seriously, do your homework. You've got to get in your thousands of hours of practice and it will show. And I think just get in the mindset of always learning for the rest of your life. Like, you want to keep improving, right? And follow something that you love to do. Like, it is a huge blessing that I get to do what I love to do and get paid for it. I'm so grateful.
Sorry about that.
Oh, hey, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. Understand that this is a business as well as what it is that you may enjoy doing. I thoroughly and love doing voice work. I started on film and camera and transitioned into voiceover. Research, study, preparation, understanding the investment that it takes to do this. I think the misconception of what we do is that we sit behind a microphone and a laptop and just talk. It's more than a voice. It's a performance. It's understanding the investment in your equipment, properly sound treated space. And then when you get into the performance part of it, it's the training. You're going to have to get trained. Of course, watching shows and stuff like that that you're interested in, it helps. But the training is what's going to get you there vocally and get you in the proper mindset. Learning how to tap into your emotions and who you are as an individual and convey that through the character. So preparation, training, understanding that it's more than a voice.
For me, I'm gonna talk fast. I would say first be an observer. You know, look at a lot of things around you. Just draw. I mean, writers write, artists draw. So drawing for a living. Just draw. Make as many mistakes as you can because they're not mistakes. They're just stabs in the dark to get you the right answer. I get paid to make mistakes, so look at it that way. Make as many mistakes as you can. Start looking at cinematic language. So start looking at movies, start looking at films, TV shows, documentaries, even reality TV. All of these have an editor, and editors manipulate how you're going to feel. So, they introduce something, and then you see a setup, and then you see what the hero or the contestant or whoever is going through, and then at the end, there's a resolution. There's what happens. So start looking at that framework of how to tell the story and so forth. Look at art, look at photography, photojournalism, plays, theater. Start appreciating everything around you. And again, I think Matt mentioned, or maybe it was Maroni, life. Go out for walks and observe people and see things around you. Because how we live, we take that with us as artists and we put it in our craft, because we have to tap into something sincere and real. And that's how we do it. Become human first. And that's my spiel.
Which we will in just 1 second. Just to reiterate, be human. Always learn. Know that it's more than a voice or more than a character. And just draw and make mistakes. So thank you guys so much for the panel today. I mean, I've got a lot out of this. Thank you. Up right over here, so if you would like to ask a question, just make your way over to the mic. And no question is the wrong question.
Your mic?
I mean, maybe. And if it's directed towards a certain panelist, just let us know for your question. I'm sure this is sorry.
You're right. I'm here because my daughter is. I've thought about different ways to ask this question, so I apologize if it's a little long-winded. I do play basketball. My daughter, when she watches basketball, she's not impressed because she doesn't understand it like I do. So with your professional outlook, what movies that are animated impress you the most? Which ones really visually make you in awe?
Dumbo. The first one. Not the second awful movie. Dumbo. That's the 1940s cartoon. There's no better movie. Fight me. I love that movie.
There's two that come to my mind. I think the new Spider-Verse movie was crazy. It was like a Mona Lisa was painted in front of us for everything to see. It was almost too much for my system to take in and that amount of time. I think that's awesome that they're pioneering things and trying new creative ways of putting things across. But if you ask me like my favorite movies, I think that they'll be ones that have a really strong story, something I connected with a lot. One of my favorites is Klaus on Netflix. Oh, it's a beautiful story. animation is amazing. And they had to find some new things to do to make it look the way they wanted. And so, yeah.
John, you like?
Eli, you want to go?
Favorite movie? Go for it.
Yeah, I'll go then. So I'm a huge 80s fan. So I really like the old school Transformer cartoons, the Generation 1 cartoons. Then when we look into the 90s, I look at like Gargoyles, Batman Beyond. Don't get me wrong, Batman the animated series was great. Something about Batman Beyond was just really special. And I don't know if it's just the art direction was a little different, but the music, like everything about Batman Beyond just really hit me. Like it's just so hit button, you know? So I guess those really stand out for me as far as animated. And he brought up into the new Spider-Verse. That was like a sensory overload. I was I thoroughly enjoyed it, but it's like I could not process everything because it was just so visually intriguing and beautiful. It's like I have to watch it a few times to really grasp the concept of what they did artistically. But of course, I look at stuff for the voice as well. So I know as far as like with these professionals on stage, I don't know if it's like this with you guys, but when I watch something, it's almost like watching a master class for me because I'm listening to things because I'm a voice artist. So now I'm looking at this to listen and what it is that I'm hearing and what I can pull from that to apply to what I do.
Good answer.
All good on that.
Yeah. Really quick. First off, to the father who said that, that's awesome that you're here with your daughter because it's so awesome when you see parents supporting their child, especially in the art. I love that. That's awesome. Second, watch anything before CGI. CGI is great, but for me, it's like it almost becomes a showreel, and the story kind of gets secondary to what the effects are doing. So for me, I recommend anything before CGI. So I would say, Jaws, the first Alien movie, even the second Alien movie, Godfather, The Sting, Sunset Boulevard, Psycho, Easy Rider, Apocalypse Now, 12 Angry Men. Look at classic movies. Go before CGI. There's a ton out there. Inform yourself, educate yourself. Look at these movies. Why? Because they're good. And also, most of them were done economically before CGI, so they had to tell the story without showing you gratuitously what they were. They had a action reaction. Jaws, Steven Spielberg was intentionally going to show the shark for most of the movie, but the thing kept falling apart in the water, so he had to figure out a way to psychologically put it in. So what we put the camera right above the water, and that really freaked you out because you were in the water with everybody else, and as a kid, that freaked me out. Ask anybody who sees Jaws, and I didn't want to go in the water. And that was great. That was effective. In the Alien movie, you only saw Alien in the last 10 minutes, but you felt Alien throughout the movie. So it was the actions, the reactions, it was the setups. That's awesome. So study that, look at that, and reverse engineer. Look, when you see movies, first of all, see it for entertainment. And as you're looking at it, like, what are you feeling? And then go back and figure out, why did it make me feel that way? And it's probably performance, composition, lighting, setup, editing, and probably a lot of all these. And also sound effects. All of these orchestrate to get you to feel something. So as your job, if you really want to take this craft seriously, look at the tools that set up this emotional kind of thing going on.
Can I plug one thing in real quick, Jordan, if you don't mind? To the father with the daughter, I would suggest watch Dear Basketball with her. It's a short that Kobe Bryant did back in 2017, and sort of his ode to basketball and why he loved it. I thought the animation in it was great. It kind of reminded me of, I don't know if you remember the AHA video, Take On Me. It kind of had that type of feel to it. Kobe's narration in it was just beautiful. I love his voice in that and the way that he shares his passion. And I think this would be a great connection for you and your daughter to watch, because even though she may not get basketball the way that you do, I think a piece like this connects the animation part that she may like and the basketball part that you like.
Great suggestion. Yeah, great shirt.
I'm really curious, like, Scratch is a very silly character. Like, I don't work in animation, but like that's something that I think is like very silly and like weird in a way. Like, how do you get people to like take that, character? Like, how do you get people to take your ideas seriously? Because like the movie that I'm writing right now is like literally about a sad clown paying his taxes. How do you get people to like take you seriously, like for stuff like Scratch? Overall, it doesn't really add a ton of like emotionalness to the story. But like, how do you pitch that to people who like are just all about efficiency and like drama?
I don't know that anyone does take me seriously. Like on that one, when I was throwing out the idea of that he should be in the movie more, and people were like, no, it's just a one-off. He got switched, he's dead. And so I drew up pictures. I just drew a ton of pictures. There's a quote by Steve Martin that says, "Be so good they can't ignore you." It's easy to say, hard to do. I know you can do something, you show something to somebody. I've never been really great at convincing somebody with words, so I drew stuff. And when we were working, when I work on movies, a lot of times I'll say, oh, hey, we want notes from the crew. Who's got notes on this movie? I would never write notes, ever. I never wrote it. Because, the director's going to get 50 emails, 100 emails, people writing novels about their notes. Who's reading that stuff? Nobody. So if there was something I really thought needed some attention, I would just storyboard it up and pitch it in a story meeting, and that got more attention than a 10-page email of my notes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So looking at all of those amazing drawings and all the characters and stuff, I guess I just wonder, what finalizes a character design? Like, you have so many characters and so many caricatures that are just already have a lot of character. What makes a certain design like that's the one, that's the character that's going to be in the movie?
It's when the director is one.
Yeah, I think it's for you, John.
Someone has to say
Usually, yeah, because you can explore and explore, but you're trying to hit a target, and usually the director, he or she, has already set up kind of what they want or kind of what they need. So, they usually kind of will tell you more or less when you're there. So it's this vague kind of destination you're trying to land on.
So it's a collaboration, is what you're saying.
It is, yeah. It's a back and forth. It's always a back and forth. You always bring things rough along with photo reference, and then you have a discussion. And then that's always going to change because you can't read your director's mind. So they'll come in with notes and they'll say like, yeah, I like that, but I don't like that. So then you take it, and then you go back, do another pass, and so forth. So you'll probably start out with a few number until that number gets smaller, until then you come up with one rough idea that you're going to hone in on, and then you fine tune what that is, add color, more levels of information and detail and all that stuff until you kind of get your finished piece. And
Nice.
And then that'll be finished for now until they kind of say, that's not going to be in the movie anymore, or whatever. Add a mustache. I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the gist of a lot of what you guys have all been saying, which is it's not any one person, right? Like you don't work in a vacuum. You're not just developing for you and making sure that you like it. Like it has to be a team effort. And if you are working individually, if you are at home, if you are, in school, if you are doing your own work, ask friends, ask family. I mean, that's why we're building this community here, so that you have people to turn to, that you can say like, hey, I've been developing this sad clown who pays his taxes. What do you think of this script, or what do you think of this design? And getting other people's input is really valuable, because if you make it just for you, you'll probably be the only one who likes it.
When you do ask folks for constructive feedback, because you don't want to say, oh, that's ugly. It's like, no. Oh, tell me why it's ugly. So you're kind of throwing on them so that way it can help feed the conversation forward.
Right.
People that you can trust.
Yeah.
I read a lot of like business books and stuff, and I read this thing that said people who get really great at a craft are people who are willing to deal with the boredom involved in getting to that place of mastery. Like, there's a lot of stamina that you have to be a character designer. There is so much exercise at exploring, and then getting feedback, and being willing to take the feedback, and then explore some more. So.
Iterate. Yes.
What has been one of the biggest challenges working in the industry and how you overcome it?
I'll go first.
Go for it.
So my industry is probably a little bit different than these gentlemen. Probably gatekeeping is one of the biggest hurdles in my field. It becomes a catch-22 with certain things, like, you may not be able to get the representation that you want if you don't have the projects to show that you can do it, but then you can't get the projects to show that you can do it because you don't have the representation to do it. So in that, you have to have the passion, and I know they can identify with this. You have to have the passion for this stuff if you really want to do it, because it's so much rejection and so many no's that you get told that it can make you feel so freaking defeated. And so with that, you have to kind of carve your own path to get to where you want to be. Sometimes it's being able to take on some projects that might not necessarily pay what it is that you want to get paid or paid at all, but it's to build up that resume to show that you are able and capable of doing the work. You have to be mentally prepared for this because the rejection is huge, especially with the way things are today with people losing their jobs. There's a lot of layoffs going on in this industry or across the board. And so being able to be mentally prepared, to have the confidence in yourself to say, despite what these gatekeepers may say, or despite what these individuals may say, I know I got the goods to produce what I want to do, and I'm going to make it happen one way or the other.
Yeah, great. I would also add to that, I mean, part of it is like, taking criticism. I mean, part of this industry is like, there's art review. Art review is like you show your work, or you have to show the director or the powers that be what you're doing. So you have to be willing to take criticism. And sometimes that can be a little hard. But that's okay. It's like, never take it personal. It's just part of it's a step to kind of, to get things moving forward. With that comes a lot of people might have self-doubt or imposter syndrome. That's okay. I mean, us artists, I think being an artist, we're always hard on ourselves. So we always kind of have this perfectionist attitude and stuff. Sometimes you just got to say, you know what, screw it. We got to make mistakes. We're human, and making mistakes is part of the job. But again, like what I said, it's not making mistakes. Think of them as exploration. We're not perfect machines, and I thank goodness we're not. We're human. So we have to find it. And, we find it by taking stabs, and these stabs, along with conversation and the back and forth, you eventually lead something to somewhere that's where it needs to be. So, and then also time management, managing time is always a challenge. So I learned especially, I'm sure everyone here in this room, through COVID, you learn how to work from home. It wasn't easy, but you kind of figure out and how to use time to your advantage so you can not kill yourself, so you can spend more time with your family and yourself and whatever you're going to do in your free time. Time management's always just kind of, it's hard, but managing time is a challenge. For me, it was, but I realized now it was something, once I kind of got over it, it was great.
I would say that it might be harder for some than others, but realize that your job is not who you are. Like, you're somebody different than what your job is, what you do, what you draw. like John was saying, you get a ton of criticism, like, yeah, okay, you don't like that idea? Here's 10 more, I don't care. Like, don't take it personal if someone doesn't like what you did, or like, oh, that guy sucks, and you didn't get hired, or whatever. And being an artist is part of you, but that's not your main identity. So don't attach your identity of who you are to your job. You're going to lose it. You can get another job, or maybe you won't get one. Who knows?
I think that's really good piece of advice. I think, and then to build on what you guys are just saying, I didn't say make sure that you take time outside of art to do things, outside of your craft. Because I know that a lot of times so for example, my husband's a storyboard artist. He likes to storyboard, he likes to draw. Well, if all you're doing is storyboarding and drawing, you're going to get burnt out even though you're not working all the time because you're still using those same mental faculties for doing both things, right? Play some video games, hang out with some friends, go on a walk, go get some cows like Rona did. Rona's like, that's a lot of storyboarding, I think I need to go milk Bessie. Just don't milk Ferdinand. Another question. I think we have time for about 2 more, guys. I'm gonna try and get off 4 if you guys did, but we might only have time for 2.
I have a really quick one. How many times do you feel like you have to experience a film to be able to kind of like understand the techniques behind it, especially as a storyteller, as an actor, or a designer, or an animator? How many times do you feel like you need to watch a film once just to enjoy it and then start to learn from it, or is it kind of like all at once? How does that go for you guys?
If I don't like the film, I ain't watching it again. I might even finish it. But the more experience you get in making movies, and when you see something, even on the first time you watch it, you go, oh, I see what they did. That was really cool. I went to go see Knives Out with my son, and he was like, he'd already seen it before. He's like, who do you think the bad guy is, Dad? And so I kind of cheated by like, okay, whoever we're spending the most screen time on, that's the bad guy. So I called it out, and it turned out it was. Just because I was going from like metrics instead of a gut feeling.
John, you want to say something to that?
To that?
Yeah. I mean, many times. Like I said, I like to see it once, and then I like to see it again to analyze it, and then I like to see it again sometimes because I always miss things. And then sometimes when I'm watching a classic movie, I see it again. I'm like, oh, there's always something a little new I see that I forgot or I didn't notice. So for me, I kind of many times. Yeah.
Today would not be complete if I didn't tell you a shortcut that I like on my computer. I love to watch things on YouTube, like shorts and stuff, and sometimes I'll pause it, and if you press comma and period, it goes a frame at a time. Man, you should see the smear frames going on sometimes, you can see the eases. Anyways, it's good to analyze, like reference we talked about it.
Nice, thank you. Also, I really like your shirt, by the way. But Eli?
No, I was just saying, it depends on the project for me. Some I watch just to thoroughly enjoy it. And if I like it, I'll watch it over and over. And some I really watch just because I want to hear what's going on.
Nice.
Okay, you're handed a magic cell phone. On the other line is you from 20 years ago. What career advice do you give your past self?
I actually give this advice to all the people I do story classes to. Like, come up with stuff and pitch it. Don't be the dude with the shovel in your hand in the ditch. Be the guy that's coming up with stuff. You're gonna have a longer career that way, I think. At least people like me. I don't draw super awesome, and I'm totally cool with that. But it's about ideas and stuff. And I started that early on in my career. I was pitching ideas like, you get a job in the studio, you get all these producers in front of you. Go in there and pitch an idea. Hey, what about this? What about that? And I had a few ideas optioned, and then as kids started showing up, more kids showing up in my family, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to sit here with the shovel and dig because it's a little easier. But if you have ideas, if you like telling stories, pitch them to people. Just keep at it. Pitch 1,000 ideas. Let them all get rejected, but just keep doing it. Maybe one of them will stick.
Okay, so for me, Well, like she said, I actually graduated in architecture. I learned animation like self-taught, going to conferences and other things. But so I feel very grateful like to do what I like, and I didn't know what I wanted. Like I bet a lot of you have been in college and you've changed your major a few times, and so like to me, it's been helpful to identify what is it that I really love to do. What is it that I'm on this earth and I'm Matt Watts and there's something that I'm doing that's different than other people are doing. And that is art and animation for me. If I'm not doing it, I'm not feeling like myself. Like it's part of my soul. And I would say like go to a job workshop. Learn how to like present yourself with a resume and how to work network and things. Like I wish I would have done that earlier in my career. I probably would have had an easier go of it. And then me personally, I'm a church guy and I pray about what's the next thing I'm supposed to do. When I try to figure it out myself and then pray about it, if it feels like the right thing, I go with 100% confidence, and it's led me to amazing places. So.
I don't think that I could do anything different because in my field, accessibility is now different today than it was then. I did theater as a kid, did it some as an adult. I did film and television before I transitioned to VO, and I went through the path of starting off as an extra, then, you know, getting training, booking character roles and stuff like that. So I don't know if there's anything I could have done that was different, you know, because now you could do a lot of stuff from home. Even with film and television, we do self-tapes. None of that was available 20 years ago for us to do. You literally would have to transplant into California or New York. So I don't know if there's anything I could have done different. Of course, finances were different then at that time too. So I don't know what I would say to myself. I think probably the only thing I would say to myself then, now, is to not allow people to talk you out of doing it sooner. And I think I allowed certain people get into my head, and it made me push things off a little bit longer than it should have.
I think you should then add your cell phone, go on video, and show yourself that sweet shirt that you're wearing, since that's you, yes? The Berserker shirt?
Yes, this is my character in the new game ARPG titled Superfuse, and I am the lead character in that game. So yes, I am definitely wearing the swag of my character, the Berserker.
That's pretty awesome. I think you got yourself with the flip. I think it'd be awesome. John? Yeah.
I would say two things. I say first, do what you love. After high school, a lot of my friends were like engineering majors, math, bio majors. So they went on and did what they did. Just to join them, I went to UC Santa Barbara, and I was a math major because I convinced myself math was safe. I would find a good job. I realized 2 years in, I hated math, and I got kicked out of school, and I felt like a loser. And I was back home in East LA, and it took a long time for me to realize, I should have done something I wanted to do, which was eventually art. It took a long time to figure it out. Anyway, I graduated when I was 25, and then I started the industry when I was 31. So for me, I took a long way but looking back, I would have never changed it because I appreciate it more. But I would tell people, it's like, do what you love, and then don't worry about the money part. Be good at something, and then figure out a way to make money. You gotta be good at something. A lot of people are looking for the quick answer. It's like, nah, it's like, do something that's meaningful, that you love, and, the money will come eventually. You'll figure that out. And then second, once you do accept this path, this animation or art or illustration, watch movies, be observant, be a student of film, be a student of art, look at design, look at all that stuff. And it never stops. You just look at all that stuff, I'm now looking at movies that from all eras that I should have looked at a long time ago, but there's like 1,000 more movies I need to look at. So I encourage you guys to start looking at it now.
Last question.
So there's like a lot of talk of, artists and animators being like overworked, working like 60 plus hours in the industry. So is that just happening to be like an industry norm, or you guys have any
comments to say about that? I think we have a lot of comments to say about that.
Yeah, well, but one of the challenges about animation or any creative endeavor that we do is a lot of the time it takes longer to do than we think it will do, especially because we have the perfectionist thing that comes up so much. And so, like, sometimes you can get a job that'll pay you hourly, but a lot of the time when you're first starting out, it's going to be just, this is how much we'll pay for the finished thing. It doesn't matter how much time you spend on it. If you can get it done in 5 minutes, great, then enjoy the extra money. If it takes you 3 years to do it, well, sorry, we're still giving you $1 an hour, essentially. And so I have worked on both kinds of projects. More the projects where I end up not making a whole lot, but it helps like my resume and my portfolio. And then after a while, you have to start choosing which things you're going to do and which you're not going to do. You have to figure out, is that worth my time to keep doing that?
I've never worked 60 hours a week on any animation. I spend too much time on YouTube.
Watching YouTube right now.
John, any way on that trend that we've been seeing?
Yeah, don't work more than 40 hours. You only get paid 40. Don't do more than 40. You don't work for free. You're worth, your time is and talent is worth more than that. I mean, they barely pay you enough as it is, and they barely give you enough time as it is. So you have to, knowing that, I mean, they're not going to give you more time, so you have to work reverse. It's like, well, how can I work and get what I need in the time needed? So it's more of conditioning yourself. Like I said earlier, my story when I started Biz Dev. Don't, I know a lot of young guns. Young guns are like people out of college. They're like, okay, I'm ready to impress, and oh, I'll work for free, and I'm gonna stay up till 1 or 2 in the morning. I'm gonna give them like 40 designs. It's like, don't do that. You're only hurting yourself, and you're hurting the industry. You're hurting your fellow brother and sister trying to do what they do. So condition yourself to work only with, the minimum to get what you need. You're still going to work hard, but it's like, work smart. It's, instead of, character design, maybe just do 5 passes or 6, no more than that, but rough, always rough. Don't start anything polished, because you're going to burn yourself, because the director's going to say, oh, that's pretty. It's not what I want, but thank you. And then you just impress them with staying up all night, working on a pretty stuff that they're not going to use. So, just take care of yourself. It's easy to get stressed out. It's easy to get burned out. So you got to work in these conditions to take care of yourself. And that's important.
And I think, like, for our production, a personal story, we're on season 2 right now of our show. In season 1, we had a lot of burnout on our team because we did realize that we were expecting things to be done in certain time frames, and we weren't, as a production staff, we weren't giving our artists enough leeway for anything that might happen. Like they said, art can take a lot longer than people who aren't doing the art realize that it takes. And so one thing that we did was we made sure that we had open communication with our staff. So if you're ever with a production and they're expecting every week to be 80, 90 hours a week constantly, you need to step up and say something, not in an aggressive way. Let them know that you still love the project, you love working for them. But I would say that don't be afraid to speak up and just say, hey, listen, I'd like to have a family life. I'd like to go see my kids. I'd like to go see my parents. I'd like to hang out with my friends. And see if you can work with them to adjust some schedules, because any good production management team is going to be able to have flexibility within that schedule that they're already kind of secretly planning for. So
yeah, ask yourself, and that's a great point, Jordan. It's like, wait, is everyone else doing the same amount of time I am? Is everybody else working over 40? Is executives working over 40? Is management working over 40? Are they losing sleep like I am? That kind of thing.
Yeah, but you don't want to.
If we're a team, we should all be on the same team. So.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you're on a team. Everyone should be pulling the equal weight. Gentlemen, thank you so much for the panel today. Let's give our panelists a big round of applause.